Oh, hello. Okay, hi guys. I lost my voice last week. It hasn't come back yet, so I don't normally sound like this. This isn't my normal voice. I normally have a nice voice, so please bear with me. And I might be coughing a little bit. I don't have COVID. Please come talk to me after. I have been tested. It's just a cold. We can all hang out. But first, I just kind of want to see what you guys are up to. Who is like a lab side here? Lab techs, awesome, awesome. Love to see it. I'm a lab tech too. And who's more on the clinical denturist side? Couple denturists here? Yes, love to see it. So, and how many of you are digital right now, making digital dentures? Couple people? Okay, good. This is good. Excellent. My background, kind of like Richard was saying. Oh, I have a clicker here. Well, let's use the clicker. So my name's Pam. I'm actually a RDT. I started working, like Richard said, at Argen Canada about 10 years ago. And then I came back to my hometown, which is in Edmonton, Alberta, kind of in the middle northern Canada. And I ended up running a removables department at a full service lab. So I did that for quite a while, fully analog, pumping out dentures every day. I know the struggles. I started doing some study groups on implant cases for just local surgeons. We're trying to get a community together so we could plan our cases. Then some denturists got involved. So I started doing study groups and lectures on implant cases for denturists. And I was like, these guys are the best. Denturists in Canada have such an amazing community and they just welcomed me in. So I left the lab because you guys know it's very stressful. And I went to go work directly for a denturist in Canada. I had my own in-house lab, had full control, and I did all of the work for 2 denturists plus a sister company, so about 4 denturists. And we went fully digital in 2019. We were a little ambitious. We got 2 scanners, a mill, a printer. We got them all on a Monday, and by Friday, without any training, we decided we're not doing analog anymore. We went from fully analog to fully digital. Obviously, like we still do relines and some partials and that. And I realized there's no support for denturists. There's very, very little support for understanding denture workflows. And so I started doing private training. So on my weekends, I would go around to denture clinics in Canada and start helping them if they had purchased equipment, how to use their equipment more efficiently, how to change their clinical workflows. And people were super grateful, and I loved it. I loved it so much. So last year I reached out to Argen and I said, hey man, I like dentures and I'm good at dentures. If you ever want to hire someone that's good at dentures, let's do it. And so we're now developing a whole team, and we're going to be working on developing kind of that support specifically for dentures on the lab side and on the dentures clinical side. So obviously I'm a denture nerd. I love dentures. I love talking dental. I live in dental, but I do have some other hobbies. I'm Canadian. It's very cold, so I like quilting. I like to quilt in my free time. It kind of relieves my stress. My husband and I like fishing, and that's my little chihuahua there. We like to hang out in the mountains when we can get out there. So yeah, if you want to come chat later about literally anything, doesn't have to be dentures, please come by. I'd love to hang out. So let's get started. Why are we switching to digital? Why? One, it's obviously really cool. Okay, it's so cool. It's like the coolest thing ever. That can't be why your business is moving, but it can be the inspiration. How about material selection? Possibly. There's more options for materials now. We're not limited to just injecting and packing. Maybe we can try some new things. There's a lot of innovation happening. Progressing our profession. This is very big in Canada. The denturist has a big community there, and I know it's growing in the States too. But even the denture side of lab technicians, if you are a removable lab tech, I understand it's not all the glory of a crown or bridge tech, but what we do is hard, and doing full mouth restorations is difficult. So kind of getting our voice out there, showing our skills, proving our worth, progressing ourselves. Obviously, better patient outcomes. We can get much better patient outcomes with a digital workflow, and I'm going to go through that a little bit today. And then the most important, efficiency, efficiency, efficiency. There's no point in changing our entire office if we're not going to be better at what we're doing. We want to make more money, and time is money. So if we're not being more efficient, what's the point? And so that's kind of what we're going to talk about today, is how we can get you more efficient. Not just playing with cool toys, but making more money with your cool toys. So what we're going to talk about, we're going to really quickly go over a traditional workflow so we're all on the same page. We're going to talk about manufacturing options, printing, milling, what's out there. We're going to go through a 3-appointment workflow. We're going to go step by step what that looks like, how you can talk to your dentist about that, or how you can bring that into your denture clinic. We'll go through a 4-appointment workflow, same thing. We'll talk about how to get started, what equipment you need, kind of where you can dip your toes in. You don't have to do what I did. You don't have to jump all in 1 week. There's ways to gradually get in there. And then we're going to talk a little bit about efficiency tips, a couple things, nothing crazy, just for those who are already designing. So let's go through a traditional workflow. So the first appointment that your dentist or you are seeing a patient is a preliminary impression. You're going to make a custom tray. Next appointment, they're going to do a final impression. Then you're going to make a wax rim. Then you're going to do a bite registration. You guys get it. It's a lot of work to get to that final point for yourself and for the clinicians. What we can do sometimes, and I know depending on your workflows, I mean, you can cut this down and do a final impression or a bite reg all in one appointment. You can get your analog workflows a little down, but there's still a lot of work involved in that. So I kind of broke down in my lab, from my background, how much time I was spending on this hands-on in the lab, just so we can get an idea. So, for preliminary impressions. So we're going to the back in the lab, takes 5 minutes. It's going to sit for about 15 minutes to dry, okay? Custom tray with a bite rim. We should be fast at this, but I'm going to say 30 minutes, depending on if you're using Ivoline or a light cure base. Let's give ourselves 30 minutes. Then that goes back to the dentist. Second appointment, we're pouring our impressions. So 10 minutes for that, 20 minutes to sit, depending on your stone. We're going to mount it. I absolutely hate mounting. I never want to mount a case ever again. I don't know why. That's just the one thing that I hate. 5 minutes for mounting. Set it. Make your denture bases, be that wax or Ivoline or light cure, 10 minutes. We're going to set our cases. So everything I'm going to talk about today is going to be based on one full case, an upper and a lower denture. So when I say one case, that's what I'm talking about, full upper, full lower. We're on the ball today. We have no interruptions. The phone is not ringing. It's only going to take us 90 minutes to do a full setup and a full wax up. We know what we're doing. We've been doing this for years. Third appointment, maybe it's going to come back. We're going to adjust it, wax up those flanges, get it ready, touch up the wax, make it pretty. Maybe 30 minutes. We're not trying to spend a lot of time on this. And then we're going to invest it in your stone, process it. Doesn't matter if you're Ivo cap, Ivo base, whatever. I put about 60 minutes for all your layers, all your time hands-on, and I put about 90 minutes for the background, for the cooking, the setting, all of that kind of stuff. And if you do it overnight, then that's fine too. And then for the insert, right before the last appointment, we have to break it out, trim it, polish it. So I put 60 minutes for that. For breaking out your stone, for trimming it, for polishing it. So I'm trying to give us time, but we're on the ball, okay? So I'm pretending that we know what we're doing. There's no interruptions. Nothing wrong has happened. No stone is stuck. Our teeth are all beautiful, and this is what we got. So I'm just going to go through a little chart here. So analog, it's about 5 hours of hands-on working time. That's if we're on the ball and nothing happens, and that's for one complete upper denture, complete lower denture. Obviously, if you're doing a whole bunch at a time, you can kind of cram your time together, but let's just say, for the sake of today's argument, about 5 hours of hands-on time and about 2.5 hours of background time where it's setting and you don't necessarily need to be looking at it or worrying about it. You can work on other things. Before we get into kind of our workflows, what are our options of manufacturing? You have to know what your output is before you can design your denture, before you can get started with this. Really understanding what your output's going to be for your final restoration might change some of your design parameters, might change some of your workflows, or how you approach this. So there's 3 main options that I'll talk about real quick. So we have printed dentures, milled with carded teeth, or a milled denture with milled teeth. So the first one, a milled denture with carded teeth. I'm sure you've all seen like the Vita Bionic. This is a really excellent workflow. The pros of this, you have great aesthetics. If you're used to using the Vita teeth, the Excels, the molds are all the same. The materials are very familiar. And as far as the base goes, it's a milled tissue fitting surface. And so what that means is there's no shrinkage or warpage or anything of your material. You have that dimensional stability because you're milling it out of a puck. And so this puck isn't going to change in the mill. So the dimensional stability of a milled tissue fitting surface is amazing. These dentures fit really well. The cons, you have to bond each individual tooth. It's not necessarily a con, it's just annoying. I don't like bonding a whole full arch of teeth. You have a little bit less design options because you are restrained by your mold of tooth, so you can't stretch them and morph them and change them. Your tooth is what your tooth is. And if you're doing a single arch opposing natural teeth, there are workflows for it, but it can be a little difficult to get that bite really ground in accurately. Just because you're kind of doing it by hand, and there are some ways of doing it. There's some good workflows for that, but it's not as accurate as, say, milling in your bite. So then the other one is printed denture base with carded or milled teeth. I'm not sure why it says that. It should say printed all the way. This must be a little old slide. My apologies. So I know a lot of you have been seeing printed dentures everywhere. That's kind of the new craze. Everybody wants a printed denture, the Lucitone material, the Flexera material. There's some really cool things coming out. So obviously the biggest pro is cost savings. It's going to cost you like, I don't know, $20 to print a denture, maybe less. It's very, very affordable. And it is an additive manufacturing process. What that means is you're adding layers. You're not cutting anything away. So by adding layers, if you're using your printer, you have a good printer with good stability, you're going to get an excellent fit because it doesn't have to worry about cutting anything out. Also, if you're a little bit environmentally conscious, it saves a lot of material. It is painful looking at those discs and seeing all of the material that you're just chucking out, right? So printing can be really good for that. It's also very time efficient. It doesn't take quite as long to print a denture as it does to mill a denture, but then again, you have to factor in your processing afterwards. So every material, every printer, every company is going to have a little bit of a after processing with printing. So look into that before you decide this is the resin I want to go to. Some printers can take 2 hours after printing to finish your material. So kind of keep those things in mind as you're looking into these materials. The cons. The denture base strength, we all know that it's not as strong as a milled puck. So this really depends on what are your expectations for your output. I personally have been a patient my entire life. I've had a lot of dental work done. And so if I don't want to put it in my mouth, I don't necessarily want to put it in my patient's mouths. And at this point, I personally would prefer a milled denture base. I think printing is the future. That's the way we're going 100%. I just don't know if those materials are there for long-term use. Let's do them for immediates. Let's do them for our temporaries. That's just my personal opinion. You guys can do your own research and decide what you'd like to do with that. And then denture aesthetics. So I know when I started doing digital dentures, I have a lab background. I have a lot of Crown or Bridge friends. And the first thing they say is, that looks terrible. And I will be honest, the samples that all the sales reps came around with look terrible. But who's designing these? Is it a lab tech that has years of experience making dentures and characterizing teeth by hand? I'm not sure. So when I started to make my own dentures and kind of learn better finishing processes, how we can characterize these, and when we're finishing a digital denture, our finishings are more focused on the teeth and not the base. Kind of the opposite of how we used to do things, right? So I think with a milled denture, you can definitely get there. Printed dentures, the materials can look a little monolithic at the moment. I think there's definitely some really cool stuff I saw at this show. Printing is getting there, guys. I just don't know if it's there quite yet. And then lastly, this is my preferred method, a milled denture base with milled teeth. And I started this about 3 years ago. Maybe more now, about 4 years ago. And even from then, even in 4 years, the materials have changed exponentially. We have some really good milling pucks available now. They look really good. We have multi-layer. They are looking like a carded tooth would. Maybe not your super high-end carded tooth, but the most important thing with these cases is the patient knows the function of the denture. It fits better, it feels better, there's less adjustments. And so if we're sacrificing a little bit of aesthetics that I can see as a trained lab technician for our patients who literally would never see the difference, I think that's okay. In my opinion, I think that's okay. So the pros. It's a milled tissue fitting surface. Just like I said before, these are known materials. It's the same PMMA we've been packing with, we've been injecting with for the past 100 years. This is a known material. The bite is accurately milled in. So we can design these however we want, and we'll never have to adjust the bite. I mean, unless the practitioner's bite is off, which happens. But if they have a good bite, that bite's coming out of that mill, bang on. Known materials, like I said, and a lot more tooth design options. Because I know this isn't a perfect, like I said, tooth aesthetics. Maybe they're not at the same level as a carded tooth. I understand that, but you're still getting a lot of value out of a milled denture base with a milled tooth. Milling time, it does take a little bit of time to mill a denture. Most of the mills that are at that level now, I would say, are about 2 hours for a base, maybe an hour and a half for teeth, so you are looking at about 3.5 hours. But we'll talk about milling in a little bit. And then again, it is a subtractive manufacturing process, meaning you have a lot more waste, so you will have a lot of extra PMMA that you're just tossing in the garbage. It's painful, I know, but the restoration is nice. I think it's worth it. So how can we get a 3-appointment workflow? The whole idea of today and kind of my approach to education is clinically workflow based. We're not going to get any efficiency in the lab if we cannot change the way our practitioners are approaching their clinical workflows. And if you are on the lab side, which I was for quite a while, I understand training your dentures can be difficult, or your dentist can be difficult. So I'm trying to give you the tools, the understanding, the knowledge, so you can go out and talk to your dentist and offer them shorter chair times, a better product in the end. So how do we get a 3-appointment workflow? This will not be perfect for every patient. This is just an option. 1, your patient comes in, we're going to do a wash impression. We'll do a printed shrine for number 2, and then we'll insert the denture. Now let's talk about this a little more in depth. Number 1, how do we get the first appointment? If you are a denturist, or if you're talking to your dentist and they have an intraoral scanner or they have a bench scanner, my suggestion is every single patient scan their denture. Data, data, data. And I'll talk about that a little bit more when we talk about copy dentures. But the first appointment, if they have a good denture, they don't have too many undercuts, the flanges are usable, and you can get a nice impression, just do a quick wash impression at the consult. Now, we already have a final impression at the consult stage. And if their bite is on, you can lute it together, or you can kind of put some bite reg material in it. Like I said, this is not for every patient. We're going to be talking about some other options for some other patients, but if you have a good patient with a good denture, this is totally doable. So once you have all of your information, you're going to go ahead and scan it. This is obviously really sped up. This was my first time ever using a Trios intraoral scanner to scan a denture, and I did it last week. I come from the lab side. I'm spoiled. I had a bench scanner. But honestly, this did not take me very long at all. This is on a Trios 3 wired, not the newest, fanciest scanner. The software is there. You can scan this in, and you can get a really, really nice model out of this. So once that's all scanned in, this is the model that I got from that scan. So it's a nice, clean model, 3-shape, turns it into what looks like a stone model. It's what you're used to working with, so you can make all of the same analog dentures on a digital screen. And if you had a bench scanner, same thing, like I did. It kind of looked like this. If you haven't seen the new F8 scanner, they're out there. I just learned everything about them yesterday. It's pretty cool. I think I want one myself. I really, really like them. But this is how you might approach scanning. If there was an impression in there, I like to do it as a copy denture still, so I have a full scan of their denture with the impression inside of it. This is kind of just what it would look like on a bench scanner. I'm sure some of you have seen this before. So how can we achieve one try-in? So we have now done the wash impression. Somebody has scanned that. We have that data. We have that model. The patient's gone. At the next appointment, we want to get as close as possible to one try-in. At max 2, we don't want to be doing these 2, 3, 4, or 5 try-ins. Like, I did have a patient when I was doing analog, we did 15 try-ins, which is a little bit ridiculous. But I'm saying with digital, we can get a lot closer, a lot sooner. So we're going to be using the tools at hand. Number 1, like I said, I always scan the entire denture. The reason for that is I can overlay their old denture in my 3Shape software, and I can use my designs, or I can design my denture based off of their old denture. So if they loved it, I'm going to get it as close as possible. If they hated it, they can tell me why, and I can make those changes for the try-in. I'm not blindly setting carded teeth. I have a reference that I can work off of. Also, I know we can put in 3D face scanners. In Canada, we were using the Bellis 3D, and they kind of got rid of that. And so we are looking for some more affordable options. If anybody out here knows something, let me know. But if you don't have access to an affordable 3D face scanner, even a static photo of the patient's face, just straight on static photo, is going to help you kind of get the midline, see if it's canted. It's not going to be perfect. It's for reference. We can use both of these references to get way closer with our try-in.
Is that within 3Shape software?
This is within 3Shape software, yes. Sorry, this whole lecture is based off of 3Shape. That's what I've been using for all my dentures. Thank you. So now we have our try-ins. We're just going to print them. Send that back to the dentist. We did all of our try-ins monolithic. They're all white. We print them all in an A1. They're all exactly the same. It's not quite the same as an analog workflow. And if you're working with a dentist, you need to explain this to them before they do their first patient. Have a printed try-in sample. Go to their office, sit them down, and tell them, this is what your try-ins look like. This will not be the final color. I don't care if you're printing with A1, A2, A3. Your printed try-in is never going to look like your final try-in or your final denture. Because your final denture, you're using a higher quality product, and the shades just will not reference across. So I just buy all Asiga A1, everyone gets the same try-in color, and we do a shade appointment, which is a little bit different than how we would do it in the past. We explain that to our dentists, who then explain that to their patients. If you just decide, yes, I'm going to go digital, I'm going to switch all my accounts, and there's no education, it's going to freak them out. And some dentists are going to go, well, now what? What's the next step? And it's just a try-in. It's exactly the same as before. However, what we have now is a solid try-in. So this is a 2-piece. This is more of an immediate try-in. So you can print in 2 pieces. It's more time. You have to bond the teeth. You need more resins. I'll just do them all one color, all solid. But we need to be talking to our dentist, or as a clinician, you need to be talking to your patients, just explaining at the next step, at the next appointment, this is what your try-in's going to look like. It's 3D printed. It's been cured. You can wear it home if you want to. You can test it out for a week or 2. I think the Asiga try-in is up to 30 days in the mouth. So go home, take it on a test run, and if it's all white, they will come back, especially if you do an ugly shade like a nice dark shade. It's a guarantee they're going to come back. They're not just going to leave with this horrible monotone denture, but you can try it in, they can take it home. The fit is going to be almost exactly to what your fit of your final denture is, not like a wax try-in. There's no blocking out on this. Once you've done your printed try-in, it's going to go back to the dentist, or you're going to take it back to your patient, and you're going to just evaluate. Check that everything's on, check the bite. If you need to take a new wash impression, you can. There's a workflow for that in 3Shape. You don't have to redesign the whole thing. If you need to take a new bite, you can. You don't have to redesign the whole thing. It's quick, it's easy, keeps your design, but realigns your models for you. If they need to take a new bite and it's really bad, I actually have my pointer here. I'm going to use this guy. If they take a new bite and it's really bad, you can grind down those posteriors. You can just flatten them out, put some wax on there, use it like a wax rim, take a new bite. You can still keep this whole design in 3Shape of your anterior teeth and everything. You don't have to redesign from scratch. You can just take a new bite. There's a workflow for that. At this appointment, like I said, this is also where you're going to do your shade selection. So this is where you need to know what is your output material. If it's a printed resin, you should have some kind of shade tab that accurately represents that. If it's a milled puck, same thing, or if it's carded teeth. None of those three things. An A1 from all of these companies is not the same A1. So know what your output's gonna be, kind of work with your doctor on shade selection. This is the appointment where you're gonna do it. This is where you're gonna explain to your patient, the final denture is not gonna be this color, it's gonna be one of these colors, and work through that with them. Once you have your second trying done, and you're back at the lab, you loved it, you made some changes, you're gonna mill it. Now this is a roll-in mill. We have some VHF mills out there, some really cool stuff here at the show that I've seen with milling. Just make sure that your mill is rated for PMMA. I know there's been some industry instances where there's people trying to mill dentures full time, and it puts their mill out of commission. It's just not built for that. PMMA is a lot more difficult to mill than zirconia, so you want to have a nice beefy mill that's going to be able to mill your cases. But if you have a mill with a disc changer like this one here, what you can do is, this one has 6 pucks, there's some with 8, this one has 6. You can put all of your bases and teeth in and overnight, come home, come back in the morning, all your cases are gonna be done for you. You're not flasking, you're not investing, you're not checking for red lines, you're not praying to the denture gods that you don't have porosity. When you come in the morning, there will be no stone stuck to the bottom of your denture. Your teeth are not broken from breaking it out. You won't have teeth move. There's dimensional stability with this. I did a lot of analog dentures, and I wrecked a lot of analog dentures. I understand the pain. So being able to come in the morning, your dentures are ready to go, it's such a relief just knowing that that's going to be happening. So once your dentures come out of the mill, we're going to trim them and polish them up. So I'm going to be focusing on milling dentures for the rest of this. If you want to talk printed dentures, I'd be happy to talk with you after this. But for now, let's just focus on this one workflow and kind of see where this can take us. So this is a typical denture. When it comes right out of the mill, it's a little bit matte and it needs a little bit of finishing. And like I was saying, most of our finishing is done on the teeth. We'll take a really, really small diamond disc. We'll disc in between the teeth. We'll maybe characterize it with a brush, clean up the gingival roll a little bit. Unlike analog, where you do not touch the teeth, they are what they are, and you focus on the base. This one, your denture wax-up base is coming exactly how you've designed it in the computer. You shouldn't be making any changes. If so, they should be minimal. All you're doing is cutting off those sprues and smoothing it down. And then if you wanted to characterize it, you can. This is the older case. This was characterized with the GC Gradia. I've heard amazing things about the Vita characterizing. I think they're here. You can go have a look at their booth too. However, this is a recent denture that I milled with a client. They have that new Roland mill, and I was a little skeptical. My background is with a big PM7 mill before I worked for Argen, and I was like, all right, we're going to get this Roland mill in here. It's going to mill out a denture. This was the result, fresh out of the mill. This looks like it was wet milled or it was polished. It was not. This is a dry milled denture, and it's basically polished for you. There's very, very little finishing that you need with these mills. I was shocked. Like, this is amazing. He's finishing his dentures in 5-10 minutes. No work at all. So, quick review. First appointment, talk to your doctors. If you're a denturist, you're doing this yourself, do a wash impression in their denture. Second appointment, do a try-in. Our try-ins are going to be a lot closer because we're going to be using those tools in 3Shape to get our try-ins very, very close for the first try-in. And if you have one try-in, that's great. I won't lie to you. If you're starting digital, it will take you 2-3 try-ins on your first couple cases just to get the feel of what you're seeing on screen and what it comes out printed in real life, and that's okay. But once you get efficient, one try-in is achievable. And then you're going to insert it. So that's how we can get a 3-appointment workflow. So how much time are we spending on this? First appointment, we're scanning a wash impression. How long does it take to scan a wash impression? I was very generous with the digital side. On the analog side, I said, we're doing our best, we're fast. On the digital side, I'm going to be very generous. 20 minutes to scan a wash impression. This should not take 20 minutes, but we're new, okay? We're gonna be gracious to ourselves. 20 minutes to scan in a wash impression. And then we're gonna design a try-in denture. Patient's gone, we're gonna design their denture. I put 50 minutes. So for a full upper, full lower, for me currently, if I have good clean scans, it's about 30 minutes. 50 minutes, you guys are starting, let's be gracious, give you some extra time. And then we're gonna nest it for printing. Every time you have a printer, if you haven't printed anything, you'll have a little software where you have to tell the printer how you want it to print on your build plate. That's called nesting. It's very easy. These softwares have a lot of AI and they make it super easy for you. I used an Asiga. It's basically click and go. There's very, very little work involved. So I put 10 minutes, when really it's more like 2. Sorry, guys. And then we're going to print it. So you're not actually doing anything with your hands while it's printing. It's printing in your printer. So I put 120 minutes, and that's for 2 arches. It's definitely come down from there. This is for a try-in, so we're laying them kind of flat so we can get the most time out of our printer. And then, I'm so sorry. I have an itch in my throat. All right. And then we're going to remove it out of the printer, cure it, finish it, about 15 minutes. Again, this depends on which resin you're using and what their instructions for use are. But I put about 15 minutes. If we need to make any changes, we're going to scan that in, redesign it if we need to. So I put about 20 minutes on there. And then we're going to nest it for milling. Same thing, you got to put in your nesting software. I put about 20 minutes for that. And then we're going to mill it. How much time is it taking us for a 3-appointment workflow on the lab side? About 155 minutes, so 2.5 hours with your hands. And then I put about 6 hours of processing time. That will change depending on your mill, depending on your printer. But we're going for averages here. So this is kind of what it's looking like. Hands-on, if we can switch our appointments to a 3-appointment workflow, on the lab side, we have cut our time in half. Half the time to do a 3-appointment workflow. Again, this will not work for every patient. I'm not expecting you to switch all of your cases to a 3-appointment workflow. But if we can even switch 1/4 of them over to a 3-appointment workflow, we can reduce the time of that in half. So what if they don't have a perfect denture? We need to do a 4-appointment workflow. What if they don't have a denture? What if they don't have any teeth and they have nothing? We'll still need to start with a traditional approach of our preliminary impression. And what we can move on to next, and then we can get into a try-in, and then we can go to insert. This is an Ivoclar workflow. This is using their anathometer workflow. So at the first appointment, you would be doing 2 preliminary impressions and a preliminary bite. This is not a final bite. This is a very preliminary bite, just so we can get 2 articulated models together. And that's kind of what it looks like in the 3Shape software. You'll be taking your 2 scans and aligning them. You can see here it's going to align the lower, align the upper, and now we have 2 preliminary models with a preliminary bite. We're still going to do a final impression with border molding, but this one is just to get some preliminary models so that we can make a custom tray or anathometer. Anathometer, this is again an Ivoclar workflow, but you can use it in 3Shape with any. It's free with 3Shape, comes with it. It's a digital pin tracer. So if your dentists do a lot of pin tracing, or if you do pin tracing in your clinic, this is an excellent workflow. If you want to know more about the clinical side, check out their website. They got a whole set of videos you can show to your dentists on how to use this, how to use their anathometers. Or if you wanted to, you can even print a try-in denture at this point. You still need to take final impressions, but you can get a little bit of a tooth setup there so you have something to work with. You could put the pin tracer on that if you'd like to. This was also made in 3Shape. I just took these files and I made them into a cuttable file so I could snap those right on there. If you want a little more information about that, just come talk to me afterwards. So this is what it would look like with your pin tracer. If you didn't have a pin tracer, what you could do is still do custom trays and a bite rim at the same time. I'll be honest with you, when we were doing these workflows, we would do preliminary impressions with no bite. We would pour it up really quick in plaster and just make a traditional custom tray. They're fast, they're easy. We did them with light cure, and we would just do a bite rim on them. We didn't necessarily do a pin tracer for every case. After that, the workflow is pretty much the same. So you're going to get a final impression, you're going to get a new bite, you're going to print your try-in, you're going to use all of that information that I talked about before, having a reference of something that was in their mouth, picture of their face. We can get really, really close to one try-in. Again, they're going to mark any changes they need to. If the midline's off, if the bite is off, if they want to do one more wash impression, they can do all of that. We're going to take it back to the lab and make those changes, and then we're going to go ahead and mill it. So this is an example. I'd come in the morning and my dentures are milled. I'd still have to bond the teeth. With some mills, you don't have to. It'll do it all together. With most mills, you still have to bond the teeth, but that's quick and easy. It's not like processing a denture, 10, 15 minutes. But you're coming in the morning and all of your cases are done. Again, this is from the more recent roll-ins. This is the finish that we've been getting on them that I've been really, really impressed with. So the finish working on this is super quick. So a 4-appointment workflow. How did we get here? We did a preliminary impression, and then at the second appointment, you can go either way. You can do your traditional custom tray on a quick poured model if you'd like to. It's just preliminary, so that's all right. We're going to take our final impressions in one of those objects. From that, we'll scan it. We'll design a try-in, print the try-in. If they love it, we'll mill it all out. And then if you wanted to add extra characterizing, you can. So a couple more workflow options. I love this one. We switched all of our cases, the majority of them, to this workflow. The first appointment, you're scanning a copy denture. For every single patient that comes into your office, scan their denture. When are they going to come back? Even if they're not ready, they go, I'm not ready, I don't really want a denture yet. When are they going to be ready? When their denture is eaten by their dog, or when it falls off of an airplane or something, right? So what can we do? We can offer them a printed temporary, a copy of their current denture while we work on their denture. They have instant teeth back in their mouth. We're not starting from scratch. We're not starting from preliminary impressions. We're a couple steps ahead already. Also, if they say, yeah, I want a denture and I want to start today, we're going to scan a copy denture and we can adjust that. We can cut out the undercuts. We can add to the flange or take away. This is our custom impression for our custom tray for our final impressions. Every single patient, if they have a denture, it should be getting scanned. It doesn't need to be by you. It could be by a dental assistant or another technician in your office or something like that. But I would suggest every single denture gets scanned. So at the next appointment, you're going to use a printed copy of their denture, just a monoblock printed copy, super easy to design, literally 2 seconds. Print that out. You're going to use that as your custom tray. You're going to take wash impressions, and then we're going to go through the whole workflow all over again, scan those in. We're never pouring final impressions, ever. If you have a final impression, you shouldn't be pouring it. Just scan those in. It's faster. It's more accurate. You're going to get better results. Design your try-in, and then finish your denture. That's a 4-appointment workflow. We're still cutting back a lot of time with that. This is another option. If your dentist has an intraoral scanner and they want to send you a Dentulous intraoral scans, it is possible. I personally do not think you can use that as a final impression. If it's for an immediate denture, of course, do an intraoral scan, whip up an immediate denture. We'll talk about that in a second too. I still think you should be doing a final impression. What you can do from your Dentulous scans, you can actually design a try-in that you would use as a custom tray. So you have an idea of where the teeth are going to be set, and the dentist can use that, mark all of their changes, do a wash impression, and you can go from there. Then after that, it's exactly the same. Try-in, insert, done. Okay, how long is this going to take us to do a 4-appointment workflow? This is based off of the one with anathometer. That's kind of the one I chose. It's a little more time inclusive. So scanning preliminary impressions with your preliminary bite, I put 20 minutes. Honestly, it's probably more like 10, especially with that new scanner where you can scan 2 things at once. It's probably more like 2 minutes, honestly. Designing a nathometer is very easy. We usually design them in under 10 minutes, but I put 20 minutes. And then, you're going to nest that for printing, about 10 minutes, and then you're going to print it. Again, I put 120 minutes. This is an average. Could be way less than that. Could be a little more, depending on your printer. Remove it, cure it, finish it. Again, that depends on your material. For us, it was about 15 minutes. Second appointment. They've done the wash impressions. You're going to scan those impressions. You're going to design a try-in, nest it for printing, and print it. Remove it, cure it, finish it, and it's good to go. Third appointment happens. They want some changes, or they took a new bite. We're going to redesign it really quick. It's not going to take us that long, about 20 minutes. Nest it for milling. Again, that depends on your mill, what software you have, but I put 20 minutes. That's about average for one case. We're going to mill it. I put about 280 minutes. Could be less, could be more. We're going to average it out. Remove it, trim it, polish it, 20 minutes. Honestly, with the results that I'm seeing, 5 minutes. It's quick. It's really quick, you guys. Insert it. How long did it take us to make this denture with 4 appointments? About 3.6 hours. And of course, there's a lot of time manufacturing, but that's because we printed 2 things. We printed a nathometer and a try-in, and we milled the case. But the processing time, your hands are free. In 8 hours, you could be designing 25 other cases. And so it's not about how much time it takes to mill, how much time it takes to print. Those are factors you need to consider. It's more about how much volume can I print or mill in a certain amount of time. Overnight, how many hours do I have overnight from, say, 5 p.m. to 8 a.m.? How many hours is that? How much work can get processed during that time that I don't have to think about, that my hands can be doing other things? So what does that look like in comparison? Obviously, the processing time over here is a lot more. When I first started in digital, I knew I could make a denture faster. I was very fast at waxing up cases. I could personally set up, wax up, invest it, cure it, trim it, polish it faster than I could make a digital denture. But I was missing the point. That's not the point. I could not set up and wax up 8 cases and let them all process overnight in the same time that I could do 1 case. Because I'm not wasting my time on processing, investing, breaking out, polishing, fixing, repairing. That takes up so much of your valuable time. Let the machines do that. That's what the equipment's there for. So I just want to exit out of this for 1 sec. We'll come right back. And I kind of want to hear from you guys. So I made this little chart. If we did 1 denture, this is what it looks like, okay? 1 denture is taking us about 5 hours to do analog. Not 1 denture, 1 case, upper-lower denture. 2.5 for a 3 appointment, 3.5-ish for a 4 appointment. So how many dentures are you guys doing in a week? Anybody? Anybody have an estimate of how many dentures you do in a week? No? How about 10? Let's do 10 dentures in a week. How much time are we saving over here? So let me just scroll this down a little bit. For a 3 appointment workflow, if we switched 10 of our cases, we're saving 25 hours of work by switching 10 cases from an analog to a 3 appointment digital workflow. And if we can't do 3 appointments, that's fine. Let's do 4. We're still saving 14 hours of work for 10 cases. So how about in 1 month? How many cases do we do in a month? Anybody? Anybody know how many cases you do in a month? Tell me a number. 80 cases. Thank you. So if we're doing 80 dentures in a month, we are spending analog around 400 hours with our hands. Obviously, some of that's going to be compressed because we're doing things in bulk, but it's the exact same with digital. If you're doing things in bulk, it's going to be compressed a little bit, right? So what we can save, 200 hours, we're going to be saving maybe 3 weeks of time by changing 80 cases over. This is where you're going to see the money. It's not going to be in material selection. It's not going to be in changing your equipment over. It's efficiency in workflows. You as the lab or as a denturist need to be working with your clinicians to change the clinical workflows. Once you change your clinical workflows, your lab workflows will change. That's where you're going to be seeing the time and efficiency. That's where you're going to be seeing the money. So I always get asked all the time, but how much does it cost to make a denture? What are the material costs? And I have an answer for that. And then I ask them, well, how much does it cost you now currently? How much does it cost you to make a denture? And nobody knows. Literally nobody knows. There's so many things that go into making a denture. So I did my best. I'm from Canada. This is based off of Canadian dollars, so it'll be a little less for you guys. Just keep that in mind. So, and this is very dependent on what you're using. Please keep that in mind. But I did my best based on the materials that I was using in Canada and the pricing that I had in Canada. So you have your wax. How much wax are you using? You're making a base plate with Ivoline or a light cure. This is based off of a light cure. You have your tooth cards. Again, what teeth are you using? Cheap, high-end. I went for about an average tooth. You have your stone, your plaster. We used IvoCap, a little bit of a higher price on that than if you're using like a Lucitone packing material. I understand that. We were doing high-end dentures, so everything was IvoCap. So for us, one set of dentures cost us about $300 Canadian. So it's a little less in American dollars. And I don't know if you guys can see this because the podium's in the way, but for the analog, you have your base puck. So I went with the most expensive puck that Argen has, which in Canada, pricing's different here. In Canada, it's about $70 for a high base puck. So we need 2 of those. We need your tooth puck. Again, I went for the highest range that we have in Canadian dollars. So we can get 3 arches out of a puck. It says 1/3, but really it should say 2/3 because I need 2 arches. You can get 3 arches of teeth out of 1 puck. So 2 arches cost me about $50. And then the printed try-in is so cheap. So to do a try-in, I used the Siga, again, Canadian dollars, about $10, so $5 per arch. It's cheap, 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 guys. You can print multiple try-ins, that's okay. So about $200. So for me, the price difference was actually different for a milled denture compared to an analog denture. That's not including the time involved. And obviously, there are so many other consumables that I did not put on there that you need to consider. Are you using debubblizer, your separator, your repair acrylic, impression material, impression trays, lab putty, scalpel blades? It goes on and on and on. Same with digital. There are consumables there too. Your resin trays. Some printers, you need to change them more often. Your cleaning alcohol for cleaning your printed try-ins, you're going to need to buy that. Your nitrogen gas, if you're curing your prints with nitrogen gas, that's a consumable. You'll have to refill your tanks. Milling burrs, your burrs you have to change out, obviously. They have a pretty decent lifespan, I will say. You're not changing them that often. For us, it was about a month and a half to 2 months for our burrs, and we were at a pretty high volume. And then your suction bags or your filter bags or your filters, anything like that if you have your own mill. Now, keep in mind, if you are outsourcing the last part of this, you're outsourcing the milling, those costs can go even further down. You do not have all the same consumables as you would. Also, it's going to save you even more time. Outsource that. Somebody else can mill it. Somebody else can finish it for you. It's still your design. It's still your tooth setup. You've still done all the work on it. It's not like trusting someone to analog process your dentures. That's terrifying. I didn't trust anyone to process my dentures. They're just sticking it in a mill for you. So I would work with some local milling partners, or if you have a mill in your office, maybe reach out to other people who don't, and you can kind of make a community out of this. So let's talk a little bit about maximizing our materials. So for those of you who are already milling, please consider which materials you're using, how you can maximize them for your profit. So again, this is all Canadian pricing. It will be different in America. I'm sure some of the Argen guys back here can get you some pricing on these materials. So how much is a multi-layer PMMA puck? Multi-layer meaning it has multiple layers. It has more translucency on the top. It's not all one color. This is considered a high-end puck. These are good quality pucks. So in Canada, depending on the thickness of your puck, you're going to be charged a little bit differently. And then compare that to a monolithic puck, all one color. Same thing, depending on the size of your puck, you're going to be charged differently. How can we maximize our cost on this? When I started milling, we ordered the biggest puck in every shade, the nicest, fanciest puck. We ordered 300 of them because we wanted to make sure all of our cases fit into the same size puck. When realistically, most of our cases fit in the smallest puck. I would say maybe 10% I actually needed a bigger puck for. So why did we buy all the big pucks? I don't know. We didn't know what we were doing. So if we switch some of our cases from multi-layer to mono, maybe this is how we're going to be offering a high class and a low class denture. Maybe we just forego printing altogether. We have multi-layer teeth, we have mono teeth. So the aesthetics are a little bit different. If we switch 125 cases in 1 year, we have 125 cases that we're offering at a little bit of a lower end from our multi-layer. We are saving $3,000, and in Canada, this is the cost of your 3-shape license renewal. So if you think of it that way, by switching these pucks over, some of our cases, not all of them, some of them are still going to be high-end, but some of our cases, we're paying off our subscription just by analyzing what pucks we're using, doing the research on the prices of them, and what we actually need to order for our cases. Same with the size. It's only saving about $4 per arch, but that adds up, you guys. If we switch 150 cases over, that's going to save you $1,200 in a year of 150 cases, and that's just 20 millimeter to 14 millimeter. This, if you have a Trios, that's your Trios renewal in Canada. You can save, your Trios renewal is now free because we have bought appropriate pucks for the cases that we're using. So when you're coming into this and you're new to this, it's okay to buy a range of supplies, that's fine. Once you get comfortable with this and you want your workflows to be more efficient, you want to be making more money, analyze what you're actually using. Can you fit things in a smaller puck? Does every puck need to be multi-layer? Where can we make these savings? It adds up over time. So efficiency, efficiency, efficiency. I want to go home at 5. I want to have my weekends off. I want to have time to go on vacation. I know as a lab tech, that shouldn't be hard, but it is. How many of us are working till, 9, 10 p.m., working on the weekends, not ever taking vacation because our production would go down? I was in Mexico designing a denture on my laptop. It's doable with digital, right? So we want efficiency so we can have fun in our lives. One, like I said, using tools like the patient photos, your copy denture scans, we're going to get closer to 1 try-in. If we can get that 1 try-in, it's going to save us time, it's going to save our clinician time. They're going to be happy, we're going to be happy, and we can all go on vacation together. If a second try-in is needed, which at first you will, and even moving forward, not every case is perfect, you will do 2 try-ins sometimes 3, sometimes 4, it happens. At no fault of anyone here. Sometimes a patient has a difficult bite, sometimes the aesthetics are confusing, and we need to do multiple try-ins. That's okay. We are not redesigning our case from scratch every time. In 3-shape, if the midline is off, you open your case, you click it, you move the midline. All of your teeth come with you, all of your things stay the same, your buccal alignment's the same, your occlusal plane is the same. In analog, if your midline is off, you hate your life. You have to move every single tooth. You have to pray that you're not moving that occlusal. You have to pray that you're not changing your buccal alignments. You have to check your setup, check your excursions, just to move a midline. It shouldn't be that difficult. In digital, it's 2 seconds. We'll print another one, they'll try it in again. It's easy, easy, easy to make these adjustments once you've done your primary design. We're saving time, even if you have to do a second try-in. We're cutting that time back. Less adjustments. So if you are a denturist, this will impact you directly. If you are a lab, you're going to hear a lot less complaints from your dentists, and they're going to want to do more dentures because they have less adjustments. These cases fit good. And I know when you're milling, the #1 thing that people say, oh, you can't mill the undercuts, you can't mill the undercuts. We're using 5-axis mills now, okay? We're in the future. We're not using a 3-axis mill that can't mill those undercuts. I would say 99% of my cases went just fine. The ones with severe undercuts, I'm not putting that in my patient's mouth. I'm adjusting that. So if I have a severe undercut, how many times in your dentures do you actually keep those? You don't. You adjust them so that they'll fit in the mouth a little more comfortably. I'm going to block them out in the software just a little bit, nothing crazy, so they're still going to fit great. So if that's what you're hearing and that's what's holding you back, please believe me, from 4 years of milling, you can get those undercuts with these new mills. The strategies are better, the burrs are better, the way they move their axes around is better. Once you've designed this denture, you have the file forever. When we make an analog denture, what do we do at the end of making our denture? We smash all of our data into pieces, and we never have it ever again. So if something happens to that denture, if Martha throws it off a cruise ship, if someone at the old folks' home comes and steals them all, we're starting from scratch. We are wasting so much time. Now, if Suzanne is on vacation in Florida and she calls me and says, I've lost my denture, no worries. I will mill you an exact replica. I will get in contact with a dentist in your area in case you need to adjust this. Maybe your tissue's changed a little bit since you've last seen me. That's fine. I'll have it to you in 2 days. And we are not starting from scratch. This is efficiency at prime. Your patients will have these records forever. If they come back in 5 years and their teeth are worn down, which they will be, especially with some of these new materials, they're not lasting as long, that's okay. We can work with what we have. They're gonna come back, they're gonna say, hey, I'm ready for a new denture. What you can do is print an exact replica of what you already have made 5 years ago. So the first appointment, when they come back, final impressions. You are so far ahead, you can get this done in 2 appointments. You're doing final impressions and you're checking their design that you've already designed 5 years ago. You could potentially go right to mill. So this is setting you up for efficiency in the future. Right now, it will feel hard. It's not easy to transition. It's not easy to work with your dentist. Once you get this moving, 5 years from now, you're going to thank yourself. You're going to have so much more free time to go do fun things like quilting. And like I said, always, always, always scan a copy denture. Every patient that came into our office that was not our patient, that needed a repair, we would repair it, scan that denture. Why are you doing a repair? Almost always it's because they've overclosed their bite. They've worn in those teeth and their anteriors are touching or it's really thin. So what's going to happen? This is a temporary solution, a repair. They're going to come in a couple more weeks. It's going to be unrepairable. It's going to be broken in multiple places, but we have scanned a copy denture at their last appointment, and once again, we can start using that for final impressions. Always scan a copy denture. For you denturists, this is also an extra kind of income that you can be bringing into your clinic. You can go to your local senior homes or to the hospitals. You can say, I'm going to scan in everyone's denture. Everyone gets a scanned denture. You can charge for that if you want to. You can do it for free if you want to. How many hospitals, senior homes, retirement homes do you hear from where they say, I don't know, so-and-so flushed my denture down the toilet? My grandmother, she had dementia. She stole every denture off the ward and put them in her cupboard. And that was her little treasure. But they couldn't tell whose was whose. So many patients had to get their dentures remade from scratch. If you go in there and you say, here's a pamphlet, I now have a digital copy of your denture, and you scan everyone's denture, they're going to come to you first. You're retaining customers, you're retaining clients, they know you have their information, make a little pamphlet, make it look cool and digital, and they're going to come to you first. So that's kind of all I have for dentures, but really quick, how can we get efficiency in other areas? If you start with dentures, I would start there if your main focus is dentures and expand into other areas. So partials are the bane of my existence. I hate partials. They are very difficult to make, very difficult to work with on the patient side. I hate them. I understand the benefits to the patient. I understand why it's a good product. I just don't want to make them. So with a mill, you can actually mill your partial teeth. They'll come out all bridged together. You can pop it right on your framework. For us, we were still processing them conventionally, but there are a lot of really cool ideas coming out. I saw some cool stuff at the show here where you can kind of process it all in one, and there's some cool ideas coming out with this. If you have those cases where they have one tooth, one tooth, one tooth, one tooth, and the space is all weird, and you're like, does a central fit, or two laterals, or what? On the computer, you can play around with that. Put in whatever you want, design it however you want. It's going to fit perfectly. Like little Lego pieces, you're going to mill it out, pop them in, process them on. Easy, easy, easy. Your fingers are not bleeding anymore. Flippers. This is huge. If your dentists have an intraoral scanner, these flippers just pop right in. Reach out to your dentist, tell them you make them all their flippers. This flipper specifically took me 8 minutes to design. In the flipper software, you can identically match their natural teeth. You click a button and it matches whatever tooth you want it to match. So you have an exact match of their natural tooth on the other side. So you're never trying to pick a mold and make it fit and round it and play with it forever. Just copy their natural teeth, do some adjustments, pop out a flipper. And they fit so good, you guys. They're just snapping right in. We don't do clasps on them anymore. They just click right in. Splints. Splints is huge. I know if you're doing dentures in your lab, you're probably also doing splints. Argen is now printing splints. So even if you have a printer, even if you're a full-service lab, maybe you don't want to tie up your equipment printing splints. They take a long time. If you want to send to Argen, it's a 2-day turnaround. They come back fully polished. In Canada, it's $40. I don't know what it is in the States, but it's cheap, it's easy. You're doing a design in 5 to 10 minutes, and in 2 days, it comes back fully polished. We haven't done anything on the manufacturing side. We're not dealing with the printer. Splints can be a little finicky sometimes. Let somebody else do that for you. Immediate dentures. So immediate dentures is huge. Huge, huge, huge. Couple reasons. One, like you can see on this picture here, you always have a reference of where your natural teeth were. Every single time, you can just pull that back up, see where your natural teeth were. Right here, you'll see I'm doing a 2D cross-section, and I'm measuring from the neck of the tooth to how much bone I've taken off. It's still a guesstimate. It's better than carving it on a model. But then you can take this, go to your surgeon and say, in this area it's really tight. I would like about 3 millimeters of alveo. You can show them a 2D cross-section. You can share the information, make a little video. This is huge. It's excellent for communication. Also, when you're setting your teeth, like I said, you always have the preview of what your old teeth used to look like. Implant dentures, I talked about this yesterday. If you want to go more in depth into implant dentures, there's so much you can do with digital, so much time saving, so much efficiency. I'm not going to get into all of that today. If you want to talk more, please come find me. How can you guys get started? What do you actually need in your lab? What do you actually need in your clinic? Do you need to buy everything today? Or can you buy this in stages? If you're a clinic and you're seeing patients and you're also doing your own lab work, I would suggest an intraoral scanner. You saw in the beginning, you can use your intraoral scanner to scan a denture. You can use it in the mouth. You can use it for immediates. You can use it for partials. You can use it for pretty much everything. It's not as quick or as smooth as a bench scanner for scanning in your copy dentures, but it's a starting point. You don't need to do what I did and buy both of them and buy everything all at once. Start with one, be that intraoral or bench. If you're a lab, get a bench scanner. That's going to help you scan in all those final impressions. It's going to be quick. It's going to be easy. The workflow with these 3-shape scanners is fast. And you need software. Obviously, this whole lecture is based on 3-shape. There are plenty of other softwares out there. I love 3-shape for dentures. I think they have a lot of resources for dentures, and they are actively improving their denture software. Every year, for the past 3 years, when their softwares have been renewed, it's been heavily focused on dentures. Every year, really cool things come out for removables. So I use 3-shape, but please, by all means, investigate some other softwares if you'd like. And then a printer and a mill. What do I need? I suggest a printer to start. Get an entry-level printer. Doesn't need to be a big max, but something that guarantees your dimensional stability, something that guarantees you a good output every time, something that's easy to use. Your time and your efficiency is going to save you more money than $5,000 comparing to printers. Get something that's going to work for you. I used an Asiga for the past 4 years. I like Asiga. They're easy to use. You click a button, it goes. You're paying for that ease of use. It's open source. You can use pretty much any material you want. It is a little bit pricier, but your savings are going to be in your time and efficiency moving forward. If you get a cheap Amazon printer, they are totally usable. You can use that, but you're going to be spending hours of your time trying to figure out the settings, trying to optimize it for your clinic. They print a little bit longer. They're a little bit more finicky, so you might have more misprints. That's just in my personal experience. So get something that's going to be easy to use so you can focus on pumping out more cases. A mill. Do you need a mill? No, absolutely not. We got everything. We got a mill first day. You don't need to do that. Start your cases out gradually, get to a point where you can pay off your preliminary equipment, then invest into a mill if you need to. Work with outsourcing partners. Argen Canada does not currently mill dentures, or Argen in the US. I think they're starting to mill, but I'm unsure. I'll double check on that. But we do in Canada work with some really good milling partners. We work with other labs and denturists and all across Canada. So if I have somebody in Western Canada who wants to mill, I have a partner very close to them. If I have somebody in Eastern Canada who wants to mill, I have a partner very close to them. You don't necessarily need a mill. It's nice, yes, it's very nice to have it in-house, to have your own mill, but it's not something you need off the hop, something you can work up to. Community support. This is huge. There was no sales support when I got started. Now there is. That's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to give a little bit more support to our denturists in Canada. But study groups, online forums, I hadn't used Facebook for about 10 years. I just stopped using Facebook. And then when I was getting to digital, they're like, oh, you got to get on Facebook. There's such cool people. Everyone's telling you how to do it. I was like, fine, I'll get back on Facebook. I don't use it for anything except dental. So get on Facebook, get on those online forums, go to study groups that are digital, befriend other digital clinics, okay? I know there's a lot of competition in the lab space. Go to another city, somewhere where you're not competing. Go to these clinics. People who are in digital are so pumped about digital, they will gladly show you their equipment. They will show you their workflows. It's fun to share. It's fun to have that community. Also, it's good to have a backup. If you do buy a mill and your mill goes down, you now have a friend a city over who can help you mill your cases. They can help you when your mill's down. And then obviously one-on-one training. If you can find one-on-one training, I know I offer it in Canada. There are some people in the States offering it. That in-house training is invaluable. That $3,000, like that is not a waste. Sounds like a lot of money, but there is so much value to having somebody come into your clinic and walk you through the workflows. This is a little sheet that I posted a little while ago. If you want a digital copy of it, it is on Facebook, or you can come talk to me and I'll give you one. And you can give this to your dentist, you can give this in your clinic. It walks you through a lot of the workflows that I talked about today, what the steps are, and how to approach it. So there's this part, and there's a second half with more intraoral. I have it all in one sheet. If you would like a copy of that, please come talk to me. I can send you an email gladly. So, what did we talk about today real quick? Refresh all your memories. That was a lot of information. We went through a traditional workflow. We went through the 5 steps of what that looks like, how long that's going to take us. We went through some manufacturing options. We went through a 3-appointment workflow, a 4-appointment workflow, and how you can get started. Thank you all for sticking it out with me. I really appreciate it. Please come talk to me after.